Hi, this is Mark Meyer from MarTech Hero. So in this video, I'm going to kind of take a step back. On this MarTech Hero YouTube channel, I have a lot of, we'll say, more advanced things you could do with Eloqua. But based on some feedback, people would like just to step back and kind of learn how to use the tool. So I thought I would just periodically do some of these videos that kind of show the core things you could do with Eloqua and how you could do them. So in this video, we're just going to talk about segments and contacts. And more specifically, I'm going to go over the segmentation basics, and then we'll go over contacts and how to add contacts to your segment, and then how to exclude certain contacts or a list of people from your segment, and then finally how to add filters to your segment. So let's just dive in and get started. So what is segmentation? Basically, segmentation is just your target audience or the audience you're trying to reach with your Eloqua campaign or email. Some examples of things you could segment on are product of interest, the region or the country that they live in, or maybe the job title. So in Eloqua, you need to decide who should be included in your segment and also who should be excluded or not included in your segment. So if we look at this diagram, there's 3 segments of people we want included, and then 1 excluded segment. So anybody that overlaps in that excluded segment will not be in the segment. They would be excluded from the segment. Now, what happens, you think, if someone's in segment 1, 2, and 3 of the same contacts in every segment? How many times will they get this email, or how many times will they enter the segment? The answer is just 1, because Eloqua actually dedupes any duplicates automatically. Now let's talk about the building blocks used to build the Eloqua segments. You could build a segment with individual contacts. Basically, you can select a certain individual contact to add to that specific segment. You can use something called lists, which would create a static list of a group of contacts to add to the segment. Or you could do something called filters, which basically allows you to find contacts in your database that fit a certain criteria. When you create these building blocks, you can choose to save these blocks as local or shared. The shared assets are available to all Eloqua users and can be added to any segment. Local assets, on the other hand, are only available for the segment for which that particular asset was created for. There are 3 ways to create a segment within Eloqua. You can use a blank segment and then add the building blocks that we just talked about to that segment. You can use a segment template, or you can make a copy of an existing segment and make changes to it based on what you need. Now we will create a new segment in Eloqua and save it, and then go to the area where you can add the building blocks we talked about to this segment. So to do this, on the Eloqua homepage, we go up to this audience icon, which is this little card with a little person on it. Hover over that, and then go down to segments and click on that. This is the segment overview page. Now we're just going to create a segment, and then on this page, we're just going to double click on blank segment to open the segment editor. You could also single click, and down here in the bottom right, click choose. Either one will get you to the same spot. The first thing we're going to do is give this segment a name. So up here where it says untitled segment, I'm going to double click on that so it highlights it. And then I'm going to type in training segment. And then I'm going to come over here to the upper right corner and click the save button. This brings up the segment chooser screen, which is basically just your folder structure. And you specify what folder you want to save this segment in. In this case, I'm just going to save it to this root directory. So in the bottom right here, I'm going to hit save. You'll notice after I hit save and I came back to this editor screen that there's a draft error up here, which is always signified by this little red circle, and it indicates how many errors there are on this particular segment. If you double click on this, it tells you exactly what the problem is. In this case, it just shows that we need a building block in our segment, like a filter or a contact or a list. And then once we add one of those building blocks, this error will go away. So we'll come back to this a little later. Next, I'll show you the area to add the building blocks that we talked about. You just go up to this little plus sign, click it, and you'll see we have a few options. We could add a filter criteria building block. We can add individual contacts. We can upload contacts, or we can use a shared filter or a shared list. Now we're going to talk about adding contacts to Eloqua. A contact record in Eloqua is just the entire set of data you have in an individual. Information like email address, first name, last name, company, and country. Each of these data points is a contact field in Eloqua. So a contact record is just made up of multiple contact fields, and it's the entire set of data for an individual. The email address is the default unique identifier that defines the contact record in Eloqua. So if you have two different email addresses for the same customer, as shown in this example, then you will actually have two different contact records in Eloqua. If for some reason you need something else to be the unique identifier in Eloqua besides email address, you would just have to reach out to Eloqua support and they can change it to something else on the back end, such as a customer ID or a subscription ID or what have you. Just a few more quick things about the contact fields and some facts. There's 302 total contact fields that you can have in Eloqua. Of those, 52 are standard fields, like out of the box on your Eloqua instance. And then you could add up to 250 more custom fields of your liking to the instance. Custom fields do require initial configuration, so the Eloqua admin in your team would have to set those up. But once those are set up, any user of Eloqua can modify that data within those new custom fields. Now we'll jump back over into Eloqua and show you how to create a contact record, and then show how to find this contact record, modify the data, and then we'll also add this contact to a segment. So first, to create a contact, you go up to the audience icon, hover over it, and the drop-down appears, then select Contacts. On this contact overview page, you'll see we have a few buttons up here. There's a view, an upload, and a new. We're going to select new since we're going to create a new contact. And then the new contact dialog box opens. I'm just going to give it an email address at this step. And then I'm going to hit create. Now when I hit create, you'll see it just returned me back to a blank screen. So it kind of looks like nothing was done, but it was added. And to find it, we go up to the search bar in the upper right, and we can just type in our contact we just typed in, and there it is. So I'm going to double click this, and it's going to open this contact details pop-up. On this pop-up, there's a few different tabs. There's the summary, the field details, the preferences, which is like the email list they're opted into or out of, any campaigns they might have received, activity log, scoring if you have a lead score model, and then linked records if this person or this contact happens to be in a custom object you created as well. We're going to go back to field details, and we're going to give this a little bit more information on this contact. So I'm going to type in a first name, last name, and then we'll add a company as well. And then I'm going to hit save. And as you can see, that information has now been added to this contact record. Now that we have this contact record created, I just want to show you on this particular screen, there's two ways we can delete a contact if we needed to. One way is we could just right click on the contact, and one of the options is delete. Or when the contact is selected, we can go up here to the upper right corner and click this delete button. Now to add this individual contact to the segment we created, I'm going to go back up to audience and then select segments. And then in the recently accessed segments, I'm going to click on training segment. Now that I'm back in the segment, I'm going to click on this plus button. And that brings up our different building blocks we talked about. So in this case, I want to add this individual contact. So I'm going to select individual contact. And then if we double click here, we can give this a name. And then a description if we choose to. And then once this is selected, you'll see there's another plus sign over here. I'm going to click that. Over here in the top right where I can search, I'm going to search for our contact. And there it is. I'm going to select it. And then on the bottom right here, click Add Contacts. And then you'll see it's now added. So now this number is 1. Notice that the draft error still says that we have a draft error. But if I hit Save over here, it's going to then reevaluate it. And the draft error has now disappeared. We're going to now talk about lists in Eloqua. And as you recall, the shared list, as you can see right here, is one of the building blocks of the segment. So a list in Eloqua is just a set of contact records grouped together. You can create lists in Eloqua by uploading an external file, like an Excel file, of all the contacts you want in that particular list. For example, you may have a list of people who attended a certain conference that you want to upload. Lists are considered static, which means the contacts in the list always remain the same unless you set up some process to have them updated. After you upload a list, you can delete that list. However, the individual contact records that were in that list will still remain in Eloqua as contacts. When you upload a list, you can upload it as a shared version, which makes the list available for all users. However, if you're uploading a list that should only be used for one specific campaign, for example, then you would just want to make that a local list. When you upload a list as a shared list, you can retrieve that same group of contacts as a consolidated group from that shared list. When it is a local list, though, the contacts will be added to Eloqua, but then you can't easily retrieve them again as a consolidated group. So here I have an Excel file that we're going to upload into Eloqua as a shared list. So a few things to point out. The first row of the spreadsheet that you're going to upload must contain the column headers or the column names. In this case, email address, first name, last name, title, company, and country. The column names that you have in the spreadsheet must correspond to a contact field in Eloqua. So if, for example, we had a mobile phone number column here, but we don't have a mobile phone number field in Eloqua, then we could not upload that field. You can choose to just ignore that column at upload, though. Note that the order of the columns of the spreadsheet does not matter at all. So whether we have email address in column A or D or what have you, it doesn't matter. Okay, now we're back on our training segment page of Eloqua. And to upload a list, we could do it right from here by hitting this plus, and then there is an option that says upload contacts. Another way we could do it is go up to the audience menu in the top nav and select contacts. And you'll remember this screen from before when we added an individual contact by just clicking the new button. This time we want to upload a list, so we're going to hit the upload. And then that opens this upload contact wizard dialog box. First, we're going to give it a name. We'll just call it segment test upload. And then the import source is Excel. And then the purpose is to add or update contacts, so that's correct. On this, we could drop this down if you wanted to delete contacts, mark as bounce backs, or unsubscribe them. But in this case, we would just want to add them. And there's no presets we need for this one. And then we're going to simply click this cloud icon and then choose the file that we want to upload. And now it gives us a little preview of what we're uploading. And we could just scroll across this to make sure everything looks good, and it does. So we're going to simply hit the next step button. On this page, it's going to allow us to map the fields from our Excel spreadsheet to the fields in Eloqua. The Excel spreadsheet fields are on the left, Eloqua's on the right. So it tries to guess what it thinks we want to map it to, and it did a good job. It mapped everything correctly. If it didn't do something correctly, we could just come over here. Let's say first name should go to something else. We could double click it, and we could pick a different Eloqua field from this list. In this case, it looks good. So we're going to just go ahead and click next step. And then on this screen, it says, who do you want to send this notification to? So after it's uploaded, it'll send me an email that says that the contacts were successfully uploaded. And then this goes back to the shared list we just talked about. So if I select this icon or button, it's going to add a shared list for this. And it's going to create it in just the root folder. So that's okay. We're going to go ahead and do that. And once again, we call this segment test upload. So I'm going to hit finish. And kind of like what happened when we added an individual contact, it kind of looks like nothing happened. But in actuality, in the background, it is uploading that list. So to search for it, we could just search for a name that we know was on the list, like Albert Einstein, and we could see it was uploaded without a problem. So now let's jump back over to our segment. Once again, we go up to the audience and we select segments. And it's the training segment we're working on. And let's see if we could add the shared list we just created. So we're going to hit the plus button. And then over here on the right, the option of shared list. And you'll see the segment test upload list we just created is right here. You could also search by it by recently modified or created by me. Either way, whatever is easiest for you to find it. But that's the list. So we're going to select that. Then the bottom right, just select choose. Now it's asking us if we want to save this as a local copy or a shared list that we talked about. In this case, we'll just add it as a shared list. And as you can see now, it is now added as a shared list. So then if we hit the save button, it's recalculating and it says now we have a total of 27 contacts in our segment. Okay, now I'd like to talk about how to exclude contacts from the segment that you're building. But before we do this, I think it makes sense to first talk about the 3 ways that Eloqua excludes contacts. There's something called the system exclude. So this includes hard bounce backs, unsubscribes, and anyone who marked an email as spam. This is managed by the Eloqua system itself. So for example, if you send out an email and someone marks it as spam, the next time you try to send an email to that person, the Eloqua system will automatically block that person from receiving the email again, even if they are in your segment. One thing to note about the system exclude, though, is autoresponders are not blocked. So if someone marked you as spam, but later they filled out a form on your website that has an autoresponder response tied to it, they will still receive that autoresponder even though they are on this system exclude. The next way that Eloqua blocks contacts or excludes contacts is something called the master exclude. This includes contacts your company designated to never email for one reason or another. For example, if you have a list of competitors that you never want to have email, like you don't want them to see your offers and see what you're doing, you could add your competitors to this master exclude list. This master exclude is actually managed by the Eloqua admin via something section called the master exclude section. And you do have to be an admin privileges usually to see this section, but I think it makes sense just to show you guys what this looks like so you're familiar with it. So let's hop over to Eloqua and just show you this real fast. Okay, now we're back in Eloqua, and the master exclude list is actually in this little drop down where the asset icon is. It's a little pen and paper. And then you actually go down to email setup. And then within there, there's something called master exclude. And once again, you might not see this in your instance because you do have to have admin privileges to see this, but it's pretty basic. So let me show you how it looks. So I'm going to click on master exclude. And currently, this is a test environment. We don't have anybody excluded. You can exclude individual contacts. You can exclude groups, group members. You can exclude by domains. If there's a certain like competitor domain you don't want to email, you can exclude the whole domain. If there's a custom object that you have and you don't want anyone emailed if they're in that custom object, you can exclude them that way as well. So let's just add someone. So I'm going to just search for an individual. Let's add someone to this master exclude list. I'm going to search by email address. And let's look for Elvis. There he is, Elvis Presley. I just selected him here. I must click OK. And then it says he is now selected. And I'm going to do this down here on the right. I'm going to hit close. And then you'll see that there's one person excluded. So if I update up here the total number of possible people that are excluded, it's going to reanalyze everything. And it says I have one person on the master exclude list. Now, if Elvis Presley happens to be in your segment, the segment count will still count him as a segment member. However, when the email is sent, he will be excluded. So just keep that in mind. If you ever run into an issue in which a campaign is sent and someone's in your segment and you're wondering why they actually didn't get, or this email was not sent to them, often the case is they could be in your master exclude list. Okay, now jumping back to our slide that we had, the last way you can exclude somebody, and what we'll talk about next, is the segment exclude. So this includes the contacts that you exclude when you build the segment or when you modify the segment. This is managed by the user who actually created or updated that particular segment. So when you create the segment, you have access to do this. You don't have to be an admin to exclude people at the segment level. So let's bounce back over to Eloqua and I'll show you how this works. Okay, we're back in Eloqua and we're going to go back to our training segment we've been working on. Now you can get there under this recently accessed section just by clicking the training segment, or as always, we can go up to audience, drop down to segments, and then click training segment. So here's our segment as we have it so far with the building blocks. So we're going to add that new exclude filter. So to do that, we're going to hit this plus button. Once again, filter criteria. And then this added this filter criteria down here. And let's give this a name. Let's say we're going to exclude everybody from the company Anytech. So exclude Anytech. And we can give that a description as well if we want, but I think this is kind of self-explanatory. So with that selected, over here on the right, I'm going to double click compare contact fields, and then double click this again on this little dialog here. And then we're going to search for company. And we're going to try to find a match exactly to Anytech. Just like that. Click off of it. And then over here on the left, back under our filters, we're going to hover or select exclude Anytech, but then we're going to right click on it. When you right click, it opens this dialog window, and one of the options is switch to exclude. So I'm going to select switch to exclude, and you'll notice that this turned red and it's now labeled excluded versus the other building blocks that we have that are included. So I'm going to give this a save up here in the upper right, and it's going to recalculate based on our exclusions. So this says it excluded 119 contacts because they had the company name of Anytech. So now our total count's 290. Now to view who these people are, up here in the top of the training segment screen, we can click on a button that says view contacts. And you can kind of preview who's in each of these tabs. This is the all tab, includes everybody that's in the segment, including excluded. Included is only those that are included. And the excluded, it has everybody that we excluded. And as you can see, they all have the company Anytech. So it is working correctly. So we're going to close out of this. And that's how you add the exclusions to your segment. Okay, we're going to now talk about filters. Filters are just dynamic assets that query a database for contact records that meet the criteria that you selected. There's 3 different types of filters in Eloqua. There's the contact field filters. These are based on values found in the contact fields. For example, if you live in a specific country, maybe you work at a specific company, you could filter on those fields. Then there's activity-based filters. These are based on contact activity. For example, if you open an email or you click the link. And then finally, there's inactivity-based filters. And these just show the lack of activity. So you could check to see if the person opened 0 emails in the last 12 months. That would be an inactivity-based filter. Okay, now we're back in Eloqua. And we're going to go in and add these filters to our segment. So I'm going to hover up to the audience icon, then down to segments, and then select our training segment. And as you can see, we already have 2 building blocks here we did before. So I'm going to add another one by hitting this plus icon and then choosing filter criteria. That adds this other building block here. So let's do a country filter. So I'll call it country filter. And you can give it a description if you want as well. So over here, you can see all the different things we could add to this filter, such as we can compare contact fields. We could see if they were sent an email or opened an email, if they're globally subscribed. So you can see a lot of different things you could do here within the filter. In this example, since we're going to do the country filter, we want to compare a contact field. So I'm going to select this, and to get it over on this canvas, I can either drag it over or I can double click on it. Either one will do the same thing. So let's add 3 country filters. So I'm going to click on the first one. In the select the field, I'm going to type in country. And let's say United States. It has to match exactly to United States. And then we'll add another country field. Let's say France. And then finally one more. And this one will say United Kingdom. Okay, so we have 3 country filters here. But you'll notice that there's the Boolean between each of them is and. That's the default Boolean for all filters in Eloqua. But that doesn't make sense because you can't be in a country of the United States and also have that field say France as well. So we want to switch all these to or statements. So to switch it, we simply hover over it and just click it. And as you can see, it switches when we click on it. So now we have the 3 countries. So let's hit save. And it recalculates, and it found some more 365 contacts in that filter. So now our total segment's up to 379 contacts. Let's say you also wanted to add, besides just these country fields, you wanted to check to see if they opened any emails. So you go over here, and there's this thing, selection that says opened any email. We're going to select that. We're going to double click that to configure it. Let's say they exactly opened at least 1 email within the last, we'll say, 3 months. Okay, so we added that to this filter, but we have to do something with this because right now it's checking to say it's either in the country United States or France or United Kingdom or open an email. But we want in one of these countries or open an email. So to do that, if we just left click on this first one, you'll see a very faint light blue outline goes around this selection. And then we hold the shift key, and we're going to do that with this country field and this one. So you'll see each of these first 3 have a very faint blue line around the border. And then down here on the bottom, there's a button that says group. So we're going to click that. And you can see it added parentheses to those. So now it's going to check all of this or open an email. But we want this to be an and because we want it to be both the country and open an email. So in this case, we'll save this. This is just a test environment that I'm showing this in. So we actually don't send emails from this test environment. And these are just dummy email addresses anyway. So you'll see that the contact filter dropped down to 0 for that one because it didn't meet any criteria of the people who actually open an email. So how do we remove criteria from a filter? It's simple. You just right click on it, and then there's a thing that says delete, and we just delete. And it says, are you sure? Yes. You'll see that our other ones are still grouped together because there's still a parenthesis. That's fine if you keep it that way. It won't hurt anything. If you want to remove it, though, you just click on the open parenthesis, and then you'll see it adds a blue box around each of the parentheses. And then on the bottom, there's a button now that says ungroup. So if I click ungroup, it removes those groupings. Okay, I just hit save again just to refresh our segment, get the new count. Now I just want to go over a few different things you could do within these filters. I'm going to add another contact filter. In fact, let's go ahead and group these countries back together again. Change this Boolean to and let's work with let's say title. There it is. So what we used above was exactly, which of course means it has to match exactly. It is not case sensitive though. The other options, if I drop down this, is contains, which just shows all records that contain the string that you entered. This could be great if you're searching for a certain like email extension or domain extension. Starts with or ends with, that's pretty self-explanatory. It starts with the characters you type or ends with those characters you type. Matches a wildcard pattern. There's a few ways you can use this. You could use an asterisk that returns any string of characters in a specific position. Or you can use a question mark, which just returns one character in a specific position. So for example, if I use asterisk and I put C asterisk, it would give me every title that starts with the letter C. And then whatever characters are after it, and no matter how many characters are after it. If I did, let's say I wanted CEO, CIO, or CMO, I could do C question mark O, and that would return CIO, CEO, CMO, and what have you. You could also put two question marks there. So that would do C question mark would give me anything that starts with a C that's a title that's exactly 3 characters long, but it doesn't care what the second and third characters are. It would not return anything that's 4 characters long, though. So that's one way you could use the title with matches with the wildcard. Is blank is pretty self-explanatory. It's used to locate records that don't have a certain field populated. Between is used to find values within a certain range. In a pick list is if you have a pick list created, there's nothing for title, but let's say the title has to be in this pick list that we created called the job role. And if it's not anywhere in that pick list, it won't be included. And then finally in quick list. A quick list is just a comma separated value list. In fact, up here with the country fields, we could have done it this way with a quick list instead of having 3 separate ones, but I was just doing this for demonstration purposes. We could have said in quick list contains United States, comma, France, comma, United Kingdom. Or going back to our title example, we could do CEO, comma, CIO, comma, CMO. And then we can hit save. And it just updated that. So this now our filter has, you have to be in one of these countries and you have to be a CEO, CIO, or CMO. And one other thing to point out, within this, we could also click this not button for any of the selectors. So in this case, if we put not in quick list and then retype CEO, CMO, CIO. So it's not in these. And then we hit save. You'll see that this number 54 is going to change. So now the filter is looking for one of these countries and the title is not CEO, CMO, or CIO. So I hope that was a good introduction to how you use segments within Eloqua. Like I said, I'll try to put out more of these videos with other things like how to build an email and campaigns and things of that nature. But let me know if you want me to cover anything else, and I'll be happy to explore that. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.